You felt this before. You just didn't have the words for it. That quiet, unsettling moment when you look up at the night sky and something doesn't quite make sense. You've been told that everything is far away, millions, billions of light years apart. That distance is real, measurable, absolute. But deep down, something in you resists that idea. Because if everything is truly that far, why does it feel so close? Why does the universe, vast, incomprehensible, infinite, sometimes feel like it's pressing right up against your thoughts? And here's the part that might make you uncomfortable. What if distance, the thing you've trusted your entire life, isn't what you think it is at all? What if the space between things isn't really space in the way you imagine? And more importantly, what if the way you understand distance is quietly shaping how you feel about your own life, your loneliness, your separation, your sense of being disconnected? Because the truth is, this isn't just about the universe. This is about you. Pause for a second and notice how you imagine distance. When you think about something far away, a star, a galaxy, another person, you instinctively picture a gap, a stretch of empty space, something that separates here from there. It feels obvious, almost too obvious to question. But that assumption, that silent belief, is where everything begins to unravel. The physicist Richard Feynman once hinted at something deeply unsettling in the way we understand reality, not in a dramatic, mystical way, but in a quiet, precise, almost unsettlingly logical way. He pointed out that what we call distance is not something we directly experience. You don't feel distance, you infer it. Think about that carefully. When you look at something far away, what are you actually perceiving? Light, patterns, angles. Your brain reconstructs a sense of space from limited signals. It builds a model, a convincing one, but still a model. And here's where it gets personal. Because your mind does the exact same thing in your emotional life. You feel distant from people, not because there is a measurable gap between you and them, but because your mind constructs that distance from subtle cues, tone, silence, memory, expectation. Distance, in both physics and psychology, is not as solid as it feels. It's interpreted, created, sometimes even imagined. Now imagine this. You're standing under the night sky again. You look at a star that's millions of light years away. Your mind tells you it's unimaginably distant, but the light from that star is touching your eyes right now, not metaphorically, literally. At this exact moment, something that existed millions of years ago is interacting with you. There is no distance in that interaction. It's immediate, present. So what does far away even mean in that context? Is it truly far, or is it just delayed? And suddenly something shifts, because you begin to realize that what you call distance might actually be more about time, perception, and interpretation than space itself. And this is where it starts to feel a little uncomfortable. Because if distance in the universe isn't absolute, then maybe the emotional distances you feel aren't either. Maybe that sense of disconnection you carry, that quiet belief that someone is far from you, or that something is out of reach, isn't as real as it feels. Maybe it's constructed, just like space, but your mind resists this idea. It wants certainty. It wants clear boundaries, here and there, near and far, me and them, because those boundaries feel safe. They give structure to your world. Without them, things get uncertain, fluid, and maybe even a little frightening, but also freeing. Because if distance is not what you think it is, then separation might not be either. Let's go deeper. In physics, there's a strange realization that emerges when you study the fabric of reality closely enough. Space is not just an empty stage where things happen. It's part of the system. Dynamic, flexible, even deceptive. The universe is expanding, which means the distance between objects is constantly changing. Not because things are moving through space, but because space itself is stretching. Let that sink in. The gap isn't just there. It's being created. And your mind does something eerily similar. When you feel distant from someone, your brain doesn't just observe that distance. It actively constructs it. It stretches interpretations. It fills silence with meaning. It turns small moments into large emotional gaps. You replay conversations. You analyze tone. You notice what wasn't said. And slowly, almost invisibly, the distance grows, not because it objectively exists, but because your perception is expanding it. Do you see the pattern? The universe stretches space. Your mind stretches meaning. And in both cases, distance becomes something that feels real, even if it's not as fixed as you assume. Now here's where it becomes deeply personal. Think about a time when you felt close to someone. Not physically close, but emotionally connected. You could be miles apart and still feel like they were right there with you. A message, a memory, a shared understanding. And suddenly, the distance collapsed. It didn't matter anymore. Now compare that to a moment when someone was sitting right next to you, but felt completely unreachable. Same physical space, completely different experience. So what changed? Not the distance, your perception of it. And that realization can be both comforting and unsettling, because it means something important. It means that the distances you feel in your life, between you and others, between you and your goals, even between you and the version of yourself you want to become, are not always fixed realities. They are, at least in part, constructed experiences, and if they are constructed, they can also be reshaped. But this is where most people hesitate, because questioning distance feels like losing control. If things aren't truly far or close, then what can you rely on? What's stable? What's real? And this is where the deeper truth begins to emerge. The universe doesn't operate on your need for certainty. It operates on relationships, connections, interactions. Distance, in its most fundamental sense, is not about separation. It's about how things relate to each other. And your life works the same way. You're not defined by how far something is from you. You're defined by how you relate to it, how you interpret it, how you respond to it. That goal you think is too far away might not be as distant as it feels. That person you think you've lost might not be as unreachable as your mind suggests. And that version of yourself you keep placing somewhere in the future might not be separated from you by distance at all. Only by perception. Let's be honest for a moment. Sometimes believing in distance is easier. It gives you an excuse. It's too far. It's not possible. I can't reach it. Those thoughts protect you. They keep you safe from disappointment, but they also keep you stuck. Because if distance is something your mind helps create, then it can also be something your mind uses to limit you. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. The universe doesn't feel quite the same anymore, and neither does your life. You begin to notice how often you've been measuring things in terms of distance, how far you've come, how far you have to go, how far someone feels from you. But what if those measurements were never as solid as you believed? What if they were just interpretations, approximations, stories your mind tells to make sense of something far more fluid? And this is where something quietly empowering begins to take shape. Because if distance isn't absolute, then neither is limitation, neither is separation, neither is the gap between where you are and where you want to be. You start to feel a subtle shift, not dramatic, not overwhelming, just different, more open, less confined, like the walls you thought were there might not be as solid as they seemed. And maybe, just maybe, the universe isn't as distant as you were taught. Maybe it's not something out there at all. Maybe it's something you're already deeply connected to, through perception, through awareness, through the simple fact that you're here, experiencing it, right now. And in that sense, there is no real distance between you and the universe. Because you are part of it, not separated from it, not observing it from afar, but inside it, connected to everything you thought was distant. And when you truly let that sink in, something changes, not just in how you see the stars, but in how you see yourself. Because suddenly, the idea that something is too far begins to lose its grip, and in its place, something quieter, but much stronger, begins to grow. A sense that maybe you were never as far away as you thought, and maybe you're closer than you've ever realized.